We're off. I think we're off. Yes, we are. Right. Hello, everybody. Good evening. If you're watching in the UK, good day, wherever you're watching us from. Welcome along to this little webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. I can see we've got quite a few in the room already, which is fantastic. For those that were here early and waiting patiently, thank you. It was really appreciated. For those that don't know me, let me start with a little introduction. Hello. Little introduction. My name's Gavin Hoey. I'm a full-time professional photographer, photographic educator, and we are doing a fun little session today called Capturing and Controlling Color Part 2, which was great. Now, I don't know if you saw Part 1. If you did, marvelous. If you didn't, you can still catch it. It's available. But whilst we're going live here, there is a little questions box, I think. So if you've got a question, you can always stick it in there. I'll be honest, it's a bit early for a question, but you never know. That's absolutely fine. And to sort of sort out the questions, well, I'm not actually on my own. I might look like I'm on my own, but I'm not, because in the background, you can't see her, but you can hear her. It's Sam on the Super Switcher.
Hello, everybody. How's everyone today? Oh, I can't hear them. No, they're very quiet.
They're probably all saying that they're fine, but yeah, Sam's just over there. You can't see her, but bless her. She's going to be working the Super Switcher because we have a couple of different angles. Now, this is a little bit interesting. If you've used GoToWebinar before, you're going to be familiar with the layout and the format. But for those that are new to GoToWebinar, I think there's two of me. I think there's like a screen and me. And you get to be the producer. You get to slide to the little slider. You can drag between the two and sort of drag it up and down or left and right, depending on how it's formatted for you. So you can make it bigger and smaller as we change from what we're doing live to what we're doing on the computer. Okay, so just bear that in mind. You are in control of what you see, more or less. Okay, so marvelous. I think we should probably just crack on, really. You can keep watching me. That's absolutely fine. But the interesting bit's going to be down on my computer. So I'm going to run through a very quick PowerPoint presentation, just so everyone can join us and catch us up and what have you, and bring everybody up to speed. And then we get on with some fun stuff, some real photography. So let's get cracking. So this is part 2. Thank you for joining me for part 2. Let me just press some buttons and hope this actually, hey, it works. There we go. If you don't know what I do, I'm a full-time professional photographer. Usually I do portraits. We're doing something different today, but usually I'm doing portrait photography, and I'm lucky. I've got my own little portrait space, my own studio space. For years, I worked in the space you can see on screen now, which was my old studio, a log cabin at the bottom of my garden. I'll be honest with you, it was freezing cold this time of year. So now I'm lucky. I moved during a pandemic. We thought it would be really good fun to move house, and really we just moved studio was effectively what we did. So this is my new studio. It looks lovely in that lighting. Wish it looked like that all the time. It's still cold in here, but it's not as cold. So that's where I am now. In my little small home studio, and it is small, just to give you an idea, it's roughly 15 feet square is the sort of the size of the shooting area of the studio. I like to do things that are a little bit colorful, a little bit creative, things like this, stuff like this. I love a little bit of graphic design in here. Graphics is kind of fun to see these really sort of intense shadows. There's a video about this coming up very soon. But I also like doing moody sort of black and white and mono pictures, these sorts of things. And if you saw last time, if you saw part 1, you saw how I created this image using the color checker passport as the color mechanism to create this cold feel. So that was taken in here. In fact, it looks like that. That's taken in this very studio. Fun shoot. Sam's waving a question card already. Go for it.
I have got a question.
Yes.
This is from David, and he says, it's an early question, but where do you get your colourful shirts?
Hiya, David. I don't know. I get them from shops. Does that help? I don't know. I think this is a Ben Sherman. I've got a feeling. I don't know why, but normally they're probably Primark. Yeah, I like to wear something that's a bit colourful. If I wore just sort of grey, which is my go-to colour, I'd sort of just blend in with the walls. So, hey, we're off and running. Good questions. Anyway, that's good. So my workflow. So today is about photography predominantly, but this is being brought to you by both BenQ and by Calibrite. So there is a degree of workflow in here as well. Things that I don't normally show in videos because, let's face it, the exciting bit is taking the photos, but it's as important to get your workflow right, because if you don't, then you're into problems and inconsistencies. It's not always the most exciting thing to show. So I will be mixing a bit of workflow in with quite a lot of photography. And my workflow goes basically like this: getting your monitor right, getting your camera right, and then getting your editing right. I mean, that is the simplest method of describing it. Now, I'm going to focus today on really the second and third one. But I will very briefly touch on the monitor, just to give you an idea. If you missed the first in part of this, then here is a very, very quick up to speed on my monitor. I use a BenQ. I've been using BenQ for years, absolute years. And my current one is an SW2700 PT, the photography version of this monitor. Now, this monitor is older than some of my cameras, actually most of my cameras. And I think that is testament to the quality of the monitor, because it's outsurvived quite a bit of other kit. So if you're investing in a monitor, invest in a good one. If you think about it, and it seems obvious now, but I spend much more time interacting with my monitor than I do with my camera. I wish it was the other way around. But there we go. So yeah, get a good monitor. It will last and last. And this monitor, sadly discontinued. There are much more modern versions available, which are no doubt even better than this one. Size-wise, it's 27 inches, which is a good size for what I do. It's not huge, it's not small. It has the resolution that I like, which is more than full HD, but less than 4K. That just seems to suit my eyes. As I'm getting older, the little icons are getting smaller on these 4K monitors, so I actually prefer that. And it does 99% of Adobe RGB, but if you saw part one of this talk, you'll know that that is irrelevant, because I do everything in sRGB. Okay, so I'm an sRGB shooter because everything I shoot ends up in an sRGB environment, also known as the internet. So interesting, if I do color, and color is so important, and my monitor is great at color, why did I put a black and white picture in this little setup? Well, it's not just about having a monitor that is good for color reproduction. I mean, that's what we talk about, getting your colors right and calibrating your monitor. And I calibrate quite regularly, but it's not necessarily the colors, it's the tonality. When you get a really good monitor, you'll start to see the little nuances in the blacks and whites that you just don't see in some other monitors. So I have a multi-monitor setup on my desk where I have my BenQ, and then I have my previous monitors, which aren't BenQ. And if I drag my image from one monitor to the other, it just doesn't look the same if I'm looking at a black and white. I can see the little nuances in the blacks that are nearly black on the BenQ that I miss on other monitors. So bear that in mind. However, color is the name of the game today, and color is critical if you're shooting portraits, because one thing you notice if you're shooting portraits are incorrect skin tones. I mean, skin tones vary hugely, but somehow we're hardwired to program and just spot incorrect skin tones. So yeah, that's something I do in the corporate world, and something we do in our fun photography world as well. And this is what the camera thought was right. This was the default straight out of camera, but using my color checker passport, and you'll see how I do this later on, I'm able to just get a better color profile. That's the only thing that's changed there. Better color profile to get my picture better. Okay, and I'll go through how I do that when we get to the photography bit very shortly. So what am I? What's coming up today? Let's go with that. Let's do that in English. This is where it's live. If that was a video and edited, I would take that bit out. So what am I going to be doing today? I'm going to be photographing the most colorful thing I could get in my small home studio that isn't a person, sadly. So I'm going to do some bubble photography. Now, the original plan was to do this as part of part one. However, we kind of ran out of time, which is always the way. And rather than rushing it, BenQ and Calibrite have been really nice and said, let's make it a longer part two where I can spend some time and go through it in detail. And you can actually ask me questions, which is way more. If you don't ask me any questions, this will be done by past. That's how it will work. So I'm going to be taking these sort of amazing color pictures, and I'll show you how I get these really intense colors in bubbles. I'll show you how not to do it and how to do it. I'll build it up from average to amazing. I really wish I hadn't said that now, because that's just put a load of pressure on me. From average to better than average. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, there is some offers running. So both Calibrite and BenQ have very kindly sorted out some offers just for you, just for you. So if you want to take advantage of these, you can get 10% off the calibrators from Calibrite. I've got mine. I mean, depending which screen you're looking at, but you can kind of see them down the bottom there, the ones I use. 10% off those from calibrite.com. Use the code Hoey10, and 5% off a BenQ monitor from colorconfidence.com. Use the code Hoey5. There you go. So that's a nice little handy thing to have. I'll leave that on the screen, and I'll try and pop it back up later as well. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the PowerPoint. That's marvelous. That's good. Let's come out of that and pull some bits up and pieces. Now I have to remember, you can see my screen at all times. However, this is where I would strongly recommend that you change the screen that you can see down to the webcam view. Sam, can we go wide? Let's go wide so you can actually see. Hey, there you are. Hello. Welcome to my whole, well, mostly all of my studio. So I've set my studio up, and I've got a few things to take pictures with. Let's run you through the setup before we get going. Over there is my workstation. You've seen that. That looks good. Over here is the shooting station. I've kept them separate because bubbles will get wet and messy. I know it sounds daft because they're only tiny, but yeah. I've got my camera. I'm an Olympus ambassador, so I'm shooting with Olympus cameras, and I'm using a macro lens for this. Neither of those two things are that important, but they're worth mentioning. And then there is a very long orange cable, and it really is it's crazy long. It just keeps going and going. Brilliant if you're doing a stage demo, not so much for in here. This is my Tether Tools cable, a USB cable that connects my camera to my laptop. So hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm photographing as I take my pictures, which reminds me, I probably should just change some of these over. Let's just sort some of this stuff out, and then we'll see. Okay, that I worked, I think. Yes, just make sure I didn't click the wrong button and cut you all off. Okay, that's fine. That's where we want to be. Like that. Okay, so right, let's set something up and get going. So I've got a flash over to the side here. I'm going to be using flash for this. I could do this with continuous light, but flash is much brighter, more powerful, gives me a lower ISO and a bigger aperture number, smaller aperture, to give me more depth of field. So I'm using flash for this, just to make that clear. Okay, are we okay, Sam? Okay, yep, good. So let's set, oh, where is it? Okay, we need some bubbles. First things first, here we go. So bubbles, so I've got some bubbles here, here we go. Oh.
So professional.
Doesn't bode well, does it, really?
Do you think we should have spent more on the bubble fluid?
Oh. I mean, this is it. This is state-of-the-art bubble. If those bubbles don't work, I do have some backup bubbles, which I can't find. So that's reassuring. Wonder what happened to my backup bubbles. I got some Peppa Pig backup bubbles. So worst case scenario, we'll grab those. So I'm going to get a glass, and I'm going to get some bubble fluid. Here we go. And I'll move my cameras around so you can see clearer what's going on in just a second, but I'll just set this up. There we are, lovely, like that. And then let's just change this camera around a little bit so you can see what's actually happening. Okay. You can swap to the close camera if you like, I guess. How's that? Yeah, okay. So I've got a glass, and inside of that is the bubble fluid, and I'm going to blow some bubbles. So I've got a straw. It doesn't have to be a red straw. It's just, that's what I'm using. There we go. There we go. One nice big bubble. Yep, this is what you paid the big bucks to watch. a grown man blow bubbles in a glass.
Okay, there's a few people asking about changing the screen size because apparently you're tiny at the moment. So there's a slider, isn't there?
That's right. If you click in the middle.
I can't actually see it, but Gavin will explain.
I like the way you're demonstrating with your hands.
I am. I'm waving them around. I don't think it's helping everybody.
Okay, so if you click, I don't know which camera I'm on. Go for the wide camera. If you click and drag between the small picture and the one of my screen, you can drag it down and make them bigger and smaller. I think it's top and bottom, but if it's left and right, you can click left and right, depending on how the screen's orientated, but it should be top and bottom. Click in the little line between the two and drag to make one bigger and the other smaller. I can't do it for you. I know, tell me about it. Right. Okay. So whilst you're clicking and dragging, I will set my camera up. So now I'm just setting my camera up, so turning tethering on. So I am tethered, smashing. And then I'm basically set up. I'm good to go. I'm going to blow a bubble. Okay. There we are. Lovely. And I'm going to take a picture of a bubble. Right, there we go. One picture should now pop on screen if this works. So if you've been waiting and having the screen and haven't changed size, you should at least see something on the screen now. I said I would start badly, and I think I've achieved that goal, haven't I? Because that doesn't look anything like the picture I showed you a minute ago, but it's a start. So we need to just analyze this picture a little bit, just see what we've got. So you might want to drag your own screen in the other direction a little bit. So what I've got here is a bubble. I can see that. I can see some color in the bubble, but there's this large white spot dead center, which is my flash. Okay, so I'm not too keen about that. The background is actually pretty good. Now, if you can see the background you can see is a black piece of board, but that's actually not behind me, that's to the side. But I'm going to move that around to ensure my black background stays black. I'll move that in a second. But let's deal with the light first. So this is the flash. I need to make that a much larger light source. So to do that, I'm going to increase the size of my light source by grabbing a softbox. There we go. A softbox, just a small one. I think this is about 50 centimeters. It's not huge. I will not drop it on top of the bottle or the glass. Let's put that there.
No, it sounds like everyone's still having problems and they can't actually change the screens to alter.
Wow. Okay.
So they can see a big bubble.
They can see a big bubble, yeah. But no one can click and drag.
Yeah. Yeah.
If anyone's managed to click and drag, can you just pop it in the questions and just let us know? It's a weird question because it's technically an answer. Because that's not something I can change from here. But I know it's something because we've done it over there. Okay, I'll work in a minute. Can I see the... I can't see any questions anyway. Not sure why. I can't seem to go... right. Yeah, our organizer is saying it's working at their end. So, ooh, has anybody managed to do it? Have you managed to click and drag? Let us know.
Yeah, I have the screen half and half. That's George. I've managed to click and drag. I can swipe left to right. Not able to resize. I've got it to work. Yeah, so some people have got it to work.
Okay, so it should work. Keep sticking at it.
Yeah.
You have to get your mouse right in the middle of the line and just click and drag. It's yeah. If not, don't worry. I will put as much as I can on my laptop screen just to give you an idea what's going on the best I can. I might even be able to do that now. Let me just see if I can help those that. There's always a way. There's always a way, and I can turn on live view. I think. Here we go. And so this will be my camera view. It might look a little bit strange, but this will be what my camera sees. Okay, so I've switched out to my softbox. effectively that increases the size of the light source. And that's going to be a good thing. I know. It comes with sound effects.
I was going to say, if they can't actually see you, just hear that lovely noise.
It's a lovely noise. Okay, so you can see, actually you can see it on the live view quite clearly, which is kind of fun, but I'll jump back to my capture just to see what we've got. I need to be on workspace, there we are. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. Have a little look at my computer screen and you'll see there is a definite difference between the edge where my softbox is and the edge where there isn't a softbox. What we want to photograph for maximum color is the reflection of the softbox, because that is the most colorful part. The problem is there is this weird sort of grid effect going on here. What is that all about? Well, that is actually the texture of the softbox. That's the fabric. Like many softboxes, this one has a weave, and quite an obvious weave. I specifically chose this one because it is the most obvious one I think I own. But also you'll notice this cross. There's like a cross. Now that is also something that happens with fabric. You'll often find fabric will give you a hot spot cross. So two things that are not quite working in my favor that I need to fix. So we need as big a light source as possible, because that's what we're photographing, and we need a smooth textured light source.
Alice has just given us a few pointers on the screen.
Yep, go for it.
So there's a grey bar with 4 lines separating the 2 screens. So that's
Click
the
on
bit that you need to move.
Yep, yeah. Okay. Yeah, there was a couple of lines, wasn't there? I'm gonna run around the back of Sam's computer and have a little look. Yeah, we can't see it either. But that's because we're in a presenter mode, I think. Anyway, so thank you, Alex. Let's hope that helps everybody. Yeah, it's odd way of working, but it seems to work once you get your head around it. Okay, so I'm just going to put this black background in. I don't think I need it, but I'm just going to do it for belt and braces, really. So how do I make my my light source even bigger? Well, I'm going to do it by changing it again. So we had the softbox, that was fine. Now I'm going to make it even larger by changing it to this as my light source. Okay, so this is a 5-in-1 reflector, but with the outer cover removed. So this is the inner bit, which is the diffusing fabric. You might be able to see my hand sort of through it. So this is the diffusing fabric. It allows light to come through, but it has a really fine weave. I mean, there's no way we can actually see it, but look, there we are. I mean, that's what it looks like. That's as good as useless, but trust me, it's quite a fine weave. So I'm going to put that in the scene. Now, you might think I could lose the softbox at this point, but trust me, that's not a good idea, because you'll be back to a small source of light. I want a big, smooth, soft source of light. So I'm going to leave the softbox in place. Now, obviously, I can't just put the fabric. I suppose I could hold it, or we could get Sam to hold it. I mean, but we get no consistency.
I'm busy, sorry.
Yeah, you really are busy. So I've got a couple of just random things. It's like anything. If it's not actually in the shot, it really doesn't matter what they are. I think these are a couple of folding footstools, is what they are. And that just sort of elevates this up in the air. And then I can put my softbox a little higher up. That was close. And nicely into the middle. Something like that. Okay, so we effectively have a double or triple diffused light source. But the final layer is nice smooth fabric. You could use tracing paper if you've got tracing paper. That would work pretty well too. Okay, you could just use a bed sheet. That would work. Okie dokie. So let's blow some bubbles. Whoop. Turns out I'm rubbish at blowing bubbles. Okay, let's see if we can get this to focus. I'm going to put my glasses on. Okay, and lovely. And we'll see how this looks. And okay, there we go. So quite a bit different to the last shot. So previously I could see the sort of shape, the octagonal shape of the softbox. Now I'm getting a much broader shape, and if I go in close, I'm not seeing that pattern anymore. That pattern has gone. So we're getting nice, smooth light coming through. So we're getting close to a good shot. But there is a couple of things at the edges that are not so good. What's this? Oh, wait, look, it's the stools. It's the little folding stools at the side. Not there yet. We need to fix that. So how am I going to fix that? Well, there's a couple of ways I could do this. I'm going to try the easiest one first of all, which is to actually make my whole setup higher. Because I'm photographing the dome at the top here, if I lift that up, then in theory, the edges should go down. A little bit of optics, that's the idea. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to raise it up. Do you want to swap to the close-up camera? Maybe we can see, let's see how we're doing with that camera. Oh yeah, there we go, we can see that fairly well. I'll go for a little wider shot so you can see what's actually happening. Okay, there we go. Let's go with that. So I'm going to raise this little glass up by putting something underneath it. Low tech. I mean, that's it really. I've got a jug. I'm putting the glass a little bit higher up. That should help. Let's see how it goes. Oh, I'll need to I need to raise my camera up. It's best to do that before you blow the bubble because the bubbles don't last very long. Oh, sound effects on this are awesome. Let's just post a couple of the bubbles. There we go, lovely. Okay, I'll manually focus in on this, not trusting the camera's autofocus. I certainly don't trust my eyes though. Let's see, there we go, that looks about right, close enough. For the tech specs, somebody should probably ask at some point. I'm shooting at ISO 200, native ISO for Olympus cameras. I'm shooting at 250th of a second, which is my flash sync speed. And I'm shooting at f16 for a good depth of field. However, depth of field is all relative. The closer you go, the shallower the depth of field becomes. Okay, so not pin sharp, but close enough for the purposes of demonstration. So now look at that. We now have this lovely big dome. We can still see the edges there a little bit. So I'm going to cover that up slightly. I'm going to apply one last little bit to that. And which is this? There's a question. Go on, Sam.
Yeah, we've got a question from Margaret. It said, what are you using for bubbles?
Oh, that is, yeah, Margaret, that is a good question. At the moment, I'm using the cheapest bubbles I could find. I do have some Peppa Pig bubbles that are emergency backup just in case. They were more expensive than the other sort of Poundland bubbles. I assume, therefore, they are better and not just marketing for Peppa Pig. Other pigs are available, I'm sure. Yeah, good question. Cheapest I could get my hands on. You can make your own bubble fluid. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Stick with me. Okay, so what I've got are just a couple of bits of black card, and I'm just going to attach those to the sides just to, I mean, they're always going to be reflected. It's not like I can't get a reflection in there, but I'd rather they were reflected black. So at least they have some degree of sort of blending in.
Is that a matte finish on those as well?
That is a really good question. It's not a matte finish. Do you know what would make this better though?
A matte finish.
Yes. Definitely. These are a couple of bits of black packaging that I found up in the loft.
So Rob asked your camera settings as well, please.
Yep, my camera settings are...
And your lens.
For the lens. Oh, good question, Rob. I'm using the Olympus 60mm macro lens, and well, that's it really, isn't it? The lens is set to f16 on the aperture, 250th of a second, ISO 200.
And then William asked, will dish soap, I can't even say it, dish soap work well?
Yes, it will. Yes, there are plenty of fun sort of recipes online on how to do it, but yeah, dish soap will work well. Hey, there we go. Oh. Come on, one bubble, that's all I need. Lovely. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, and it's colourful too. Okay. Quickly frame this up. Manually focus in on the bubble. Just need to change my angle because I got a little bit of an angle going on there that I didn't want.
That's pretty.
Oh, you can see now, can't you? Yeah. When we were running through this earlier, poor old Sam couldn't see what I was shooting. So a bit of a mystery. Okay, so I don't want to get carried away because we have color to get right first. But that is the basic setup. So now we can see there is the piece of black card. It's a straight line, but it's better than it was before, so I'll live with that. We've got lovely detail going across here. This is all starting to look pretty good. There are improvements to be made, but we are heading in the right direction. Effectively, what I've now got is the lighting set. Now I've got my lighting set, it's time to think about the color part of this process. So this is the workflow bit that perhaps you wouldn't normally see, but is going to make a vast difference to the processing of these pictures.
I've got a question from Jitesh.
Yeah.
He said, can he use his 100mm macro?
Jitesh, no, you may not use it. Definitely, no, it has to be an Olympus camera and nothing else will. No, of course you can, Jitesh. Yes, absolutely you can. You don't even need a macro lens. I'm not that close yet that I have to have a macro lens. If we get time, we'll do some pure macro. It's much harder though. So you could use any lens at this stage. But yes, if you've got a 100mm macro, you are sorted.
So we've had some nice comments.
As opposed to some terrible ones?
Yeah, that's right. Margaret said it's nice.
Thank you, Margaret.
But, Martin asked what the flash power is and did you use your flash meter?
Okay, Martin, that's a really good question. I'm on TTL flash. I will switch, and thank you for reminding me, to manual flash once I've got my my color set. For the rest of the session, I'll switch to manual, but I'm currently on TTL because it's just quicker for the purposes of demonstration, but I usually use nothing but manual flash. Okay, so color. So I've got the light right, and it's important to get that right before you start getting your color set correctly, because think about what I've got. I've got a flash, which is okay. It's then going to fire through quite an old softbox, which is a little bit yellow maybe, and then that is now passing through a diffusing panel, which I'll be honest is quite old and probably quite dirty, and then that is all bouncing off a really grubby table. There is all sorts of things that are going to affect the color of light. Oh, not to mention the cards at the side. All sorts of things that are going to affect the color of light. If I took any of those away, then the color would shift ever so slightly. Now, depending on your point of view, that may or may not matter. But what I'm going to show you is how I'm going to get amazing colors doing nothing more than taking a picture of this and applying it to my workflow, which is something I do all the time and I don't normally show people. So this, let me, can we go to the other camera, Sam? Let's just stick it over there. There we are. Look at that. That is my color checker passport. It is my color checker passport, which means it's pretty much hammered. I get through a couple of these, well, every few years, I suppose, maybe sort of one every 18 months or so before they get too badly bashed around. Really important though, you don't get this wet. Okay, we're using a wet setup here. Make sure this stays well away from the water and the bubbles. Okay, so I'm going to put this in to the same lighting. Yeah, you can see that. That's lovely. And I'm going to take a photo of that. Don't need to be on a tripod for this, which is lucky. There we go. I do need to get it in focus though, so let's just switch to autofocus and just take a picture of that. So I'm going to take a picture of this in the lighting. Oh, it's further back than you think. Lovely. Job done. And then we're going to do a little bit of processing to prep ourselves for the rest of this session. Okay, so if you're doing your sliding around, you might want to remove or make the webcam smaller and the computer monitor bigger, because we're going to do a little bit on the computer just for the next few minutes. So let's go find my images. Here they are. I only want the raw files. I don't need the JPEGs. There we go. That's fine. So I'm going to open up this image. I'm going to open it up into Camera Raw, because what I want to do is make a color profile of the lighting that I've just set up with the lens and the camera that I'm using. Okay, so I've got my picture, I'm kind of ready to go, but to do this, I need, let me just launch the software. I realize I forgot to start that. Here we go, color checker software. To do this in Photoshop, I need, as it says right here in the middle of the screen, to drag and drop a DNG file. Now, my Olympus camera doesn't shoot DNG, it shoots ORF, Olympus RAW files. So I need to convert my RAW file into a DNG file. And inside of Photoshop, really simple to do that. You go and open your RAW file that you want to convert, which is going to be this one. And you bring it in. Where has it just gone? Here it comes. Right, okay, here we go. You bring it into Camera Raw, and then you save it. There's a little button at the top. Click on that. Save it as a DNG, doesn't matter a lowercase or an uppercase, it doesn't make any difference as far as I know. And just click on the word save. And where do you want to save it to? I will save it actually in a new location. I will stick it on my desktop, I think. So not download, desktop, let's stick it there. Select so I can actually go and find it. Save. Okay, so that's saved it. Now all I need to do is to open it. Cancel that, we're done. So here inside of my Color Checker Passport calibration software, it says drag and drop. To make it a little bit easier, I'll just make it a bit smaller so I can see what I'm doing. Go to my desktop, go find that DNG file, here it is, and drag it and drop it directly onto there. And it'll load the image in. Wait patiently, which is, I'll be honest, the hard bit, whilst it loads it in, and bingo, there we are. It finds the little color calibration squares that it's looking for, and then I can just click Create Profile, and it'll get a profile for the color in that shot. Now, as I say, that color is specific to that shot. It's going through softboxes and bouncing off things that are going to give it a unique color signature. So I've already created one. I may have done the Blue Peter thing and prepared one earlier, because if I click save now, it'll take a few minutes, and there's nothing worse than literally watching a thing crawl along the screen when you're watching a live session. So I've already done that, but I also did this one. Let me just go find this one and show you what happens when it goes wrong. So I made one and I've called it wrong, just to remind myself. So here is one I made earlier, on purpose wrong, and I'm going to say that because no one can argue with me, can they? It was definitely on purpose. Oh no, look, a message has popped up that says the color checker could not detect within the image, blah blah. I've stopped reading after that. I can't read anymore. That's it. So it didn't work. It didn't automatically find the edges. Now, if this ever happens to you, don't panic. All you have to do is just come down to this little one here. It says Color Checker Classic, which is the name of the color checker I'm using here, the Color Checker Classic, and just click on the little corner markings like this. And if you get one wrong, you can just click and drag it and put it in the right place. There we go. And bingo, it's found it. It works. It just, yeah. Okay, so don't panic if you get it wrong. You just have to manually put it in. Once you've done all of that, you're done. You are finished as far as that goes. You can now get on with the rest of your photography, safe in the knowledge that everything is going to be okay. And just to give you an idea, if I just go and open that same RAW file again, and I'll just show you the difference. So this is Adobe Color. This is what you would normally get inside of Photoshop or Lightroom. If I click on the little buttons, I'll do that slower in case you missed it. It's these little squares next to where it says Profile. Come down to the profiles and you'll find your user profiles, and here it is, bubble color number 1. And if I just mouse across and mouse off, can you see the difference that that's making? Have a little look around the sort of the middle of the lower panel of colors. As I go on and off, I'm hoping that on this live stream you'll be able to spot the difference. On my computer, that's night and day. The colors are just so much more punchy. It's incredible. So I'm going to choose that one, then click on the back button, and I can also, whilst I'm here, set a white balance, because I was on auto white balance, and I'm just going to drag a little rectangle over this middle square like that, and that will set my white balance correctly. And whilst I'm here, I can also do a little bit of housekeeping, such as putting a bit of noise reduction in. Okay, and I'm done with that image. That's it. There isn't any more editing I need to do. My editing is now prepared for all of the images we're about to take. Okay, so let's get on and actually do some photography. By the way, if you're watching this, I don't know if anyone's still watching this. I can see there are still some people watching. That's good. Welcome along. Hello. BenQ and Calibrite are making this possible. If you've got any questions, stick them in the question box. I'm now going to have some fun taking photos. So let's leave it on one of these screens. Ooh, everything just went off for a second. That was weird. Okay. Okay, so, oops, strange things are happening. I think we're okay. I think we're back on. Okay, that's fine. So what you're looking at is a view from my camera. This is sort of a live view from my camera. If you want to sort of drag me down so you can see the laptop or the webcam, sorry, then that's not a bad idea at all. Okay, so we're going to take a few photos. I'm going to set everything up. I've got this all ready to go. I'm going to blow some bubbles. Do you want to go for the close camera? I don't know which camera we're on. I can't see. Oh, you can. Okay, I can do it over here. Is that better? Can you see that?
I've got a question.
Yeah, far away.
Rob asks, why did you select the white balance from the upper row of colours versus the bottom row of white, grey and black?
Okay, so the upper row of colours, that's a really good question, Rob, are specifically for white balance. The one I went for in the middle has a little notch taken out of it, and that indicates it is a mid-grey. It is sort of the ideal colour, if you like. No reason why you can't use the other ones, but that's what those are actually physically designed to do. Okay, let's go have a look at some photos. And I want to go to workspace. Here we go. So this is working quite nicely. I've got some lovely detail coming through here. Now remember, these are unedited. To get the benefits of the color checker passport, we need to bring them into Photoshop, and we'll do that on a couple at the end. But that's looking pretty good. I like that. If you're interested in what's going on a little bit here, I'm shooting wide because I can always crop in, and I'm seeing things that I will crop out. For example, there's this little light colored curve, which is actually a reflection of the glass below. Okay, so that's what that is.
I thought the bubble was smiling.
It does look like the bubble's smiling, doesn't it? Yeah, which is kind of nice. Okay, let's take a few more photos, and I'll leave that screen on so you can see them pop in. No pun intended. I'm so funny. I hadn't really realized that. That's, no one, nothing, no, okay. I'll stick to the photography. Oh, no. Now, if you've ever tried this, you'll know that one of the hardest things is getting everything set up and working and sort of good to go in the time that you have that the bubble exists, because already the bubble is starting to change. Oh, and it's gone. How many did I get? 2?
Got a couple, and you can see when it's sort of on its way out.
Yeah, and the bubble looks best just before it bursts. So a little bit of sort of science between, which camera am I on? I'm on that one, of how bubbles work. So bubbles are formed of 3 layers. There is 2 layers of bubbles, and in between is a layer of water. And as the water evaporates, so the color becomes more intense, and then the water evaporates completely and the bubble bursts. So that's effectively what we're seeing, is the time it takes for the water to evaporate. Now, if there was a way that we could make the water last longer, we could get a longer lasting bubble. And there is. So there's a couple of ways you might want to do this. The first way is to add some of this. Which camera am I on? I'm on this one. I can't see that. Is that even in focus? Oh, it is. Okay. So that is some glycerin. Glycerin? Sam will explain what that does, because it's used in the cooking department, isn't it?
I've only used it in sweeties before. I don't actually know what it is, but I know about sugar syrup.
Okay, yeah. Oh, spoiler alert.
Sorry.
However, we are not using that. We're going to be using this, which is, Sam?
Sugar syrup. Haven't got vanilla flavoured.
Do you know why I got vanilla flavors?
No.
Because there's a limited budget for this, and this was cheap. So this was the cheapest sugar syrup I could get. It happens to be vanilla flavored. That isn't part of the process. It's also slightly colored. That doesn't matter either. So this is basically sugar water. It's sticky as orange. It's really horrible, but it's going to do wonders for our bubbles. So let's go for the close-up camera, and we'll just pour a little bit in. Swap over the camera for me. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to pour some of this. Actually, I've no idea how much I should pour in. I poured that much in. That was probably, it was about that much. Okay, so not quite that. Definitely not that. Yeah, about half a second's worth.
So Margaret said that glycerin's used in icing on a cake.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to mix all of that together, and then we're going to blow that up. Oh, it smells lovely now. There's a very nice vanilla smell to this. Oh, let's pop that in there. Okay, so first impressions. Well, it looks the same. Okay, so that's good. It doesn't look any worse. I haven't made anything worse. Always your biggest worry, isn't it? Okie dokie. It looks pretty good. I'm going to switch over to my other camera so you can see what's going on through the viewfinder, which is Olympus Capture. Turn on live view. There you go. Okay, so hopefully if I turn off the focus reticule.
Actually, we had a question about that software, actually, Olympus Capture. It was Aladdin. He said, where did you get it from?
I got it from the internet. So Olympus Capture is free software from Olympus specifically for their cameras. It's completely free. All you need to do is put your serial number in, or frankly, any serial number. I don't think it actually makes any difference. And you're good to go. So how much longer did that last as a bubble? So you can see straight away that what I ended up with was a really long-lasting bubble.
So Matt asked if you could use glycerin instead of sugar syrup.
Sorry, I was buying a bubble. Yes, you can. Absolutely, you can. It'll give you something in the middle as far as durability goes. Oh, having said that, that one immediately burst.
I think maybe you put too much sugar syrup in there.
Well,
it's basically you're trying to blow bubbles out of sugar syrup now. But they smell lovely.
You may be right. Okay, what camera am I on? Okay, so you're seeing the world live. Just ignore my autofocus points. But the best we can do with the software that we're using today. So a little bit of a blow. If I get a very small blow with the straw, it completely disturbs the whole bubble surface. And just a gentle blow will allow us just to get a completely different look. So let's, whoops, I'm trying not to move it. I'm aware that you're sort of watching both the real world and my my screen. Ooh, that's pretty. So this bubble is lasting forever, which is brilliant. I can even reframe. Oh, of course, the second I do that. Okay, we'll do one or two more goes and then we'll do a quick bit of editing. Okay, so the bubble, as it lasts and it changes, the colors shift. Wow, okay, that is crazy colorful. And usually what you get is this sort of pattern, this sort of rainbow effect where the color is effectively in bands like that. And all you have to do is blow ever so gently and you end up with these incredible patterns.
I have another question.
Go for it. Sorry,
Robin.
I'm carried away now.
You are, aren't you?
Mesmerised.
What should the angle be between the camera and the bubble to maximise the in focus area, please?
Okay, that is a great question, Robin. And the answer is it really doesn't matter because it's a sphere. So you really can't call that one. So what's more important is your depth of field. And your depth of field is going to be controlled by the focal length of your lens, the aperture that you're using, and the subject to camera distance. So my lens will go to f/22, but if I do that, I know that the quality will take a nosedive. But if I back up slightly, I can get more depth of field. I have to accept I'm going to crop a little bit. Are you still seeing? I can't see what you're seeing. Okay. Is it still live off my camera?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's gone all pastel-y and now it's gone deeper colours.
Hang on, let's give it a blow.
Apparently, Keith says the screen is showing 400 ISO, not 200 ISO.
Oh, it could be 400 ISO. I don't remember changing that, and it certainly doesn't have to be. Thank you, Keith. Yeah. And I also forgot to change it out of TTL mode, but it's working, so I'm not going to shift anything. That's why you guys have got my back. That's the joys of live. Okay, I'm also not trying to blow the most round of bubbles. I don't know if you can pick this up, but I'm trying to blow a relatively flat bubble, which sounds counterintuitive. But the flatter the bubble, the less curve it's going to be. The easier it is to get a nice, bright, smooth area of light. The more bulbous it is, effectively, the smaller the light becomes. Or at least the highlight, the bit we're actually photographing. Final pictures?
Yeah, we're going to get to see some final pictures. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just aware of the time.
Oh yeah, okay. Here they are as they come in. Oh yeah, I mean, I literally could do this all day. I'm not sure anybody else would, but it's very therapeutic. I'm going to pop that up a little higher.
It is. It's quite calming, isn't it?
Ah, lovely. We'll couple more. I will keep going until this bubble goes. Hey, there it goes. I think the last one was the bubble exploding, which was kind of fun. You try and time that, yeah. Okay, so we got loads and loads and loads of pictures. Right, okay, so let's dive in and do a quick bit of editing because we are pretty much up to time. I'm going to jump into Bridge so I can actually see what I've shot and see we got some. Oh, I mean, these look fantastic. Look at the colors in that. That is beautiful detail. The colors. Okay, let's pick maybe that one. Maybe. Oh, good. Well, yeah, let's start there. So I'm going to bring this in. So before we did all of the photography, we did the prep work. Now it doesn't matter whether you do all of the color checker passport bit now, at the beginning, at the end, next week, as long as you've got your picture of your color checker passport at some point in the correct lighting, you can do this bit before you get that bit before you get going. So I've done it in the order that made sense for the live stream today, but you can do it any order you like. So here in Camera Raw, to reapply all of those settings that we did about 10-15 minutes ago, I'm going to come down to my three little spots and apply previous settings. So that will apply bubble color number 1, the profile I created, the white balance that we know is correct because we've set that, and the noise reduction that I put in. Okay, and that's the only difference between what I shot and what we've got here. It's just kind of nuts. That's before and that's after. So by doing nothing at all, I've already got a much more colorful shot and a much more accurate color. Okay, accuracy with these, not necessarily a high priority, but consistent, if nothing else, is a high priority. Okay, so that's really good. I can crop these, of course. So let's go grab the crop tool and try and do a better job than I did of getting this nice and square and symmetrical. Something like that. That looks pretty good. And I can, of course, do other changes in here. And one thing I would suggest is avoid using saturation. So if I use saturation, it's going to very quickly oversaturate these colors. So if you want to add more color, add some vibrance. That won't oversaturate your colors. It'll always keep your colors just under maximum saturation. But for a shot like this, have a look at dehaze. I think dehaze is a good choice. That does a whole bunch of things in one slider. It adds a bit more contrast, a bit of clarity, and a bit of a color boost along the way. What I am going to do is have a little look at my blacks and whites. So I'm just going to turn on my clipping warning to see whether I've got any clipped shadows. And there's actually no blacks in that at all. Oh, there we go. It didn't take much to bring them in. So I can make sure that my blacks are really black. And I'll make sure that my whites, well, they could do with a little bit of a lift as well. And I'm going to do this by eye rather than by computer. Okay, so that's what we shot. And that is changing the color profile using the color checker passport, getting the white balance right using the color checker passport, and a couple of very, very tiny changes. Okay, we can open that up.
I have a question.
Fire away.
Oh, that's coming up. Penny asked, could you focus bracket when you were taking the photos?
You could, yes, absolutely, Penny. If that's an area that you want to go down, you could definitely focus bracket. You couldn't really stack these because they move. Even when they're fairly static, there is a degree of movement. So focus stacking isn't necessarily an option, but certainly focus bracketing is, and you might be able to sort of blend them together. But you might just be able to find that you can pick a better focus point. That's a good way of going about it, actually. When we re-edit this, Sam, can you edit that in so it sounds like I knew what I was doing?
Sure.
Yeah, that's... Okay, let's open another one. Yeah, well done, Penny. That's a good call. I like this. I love the texture that's going on through here. So we'll bring this in as well. So I've done all of the hard work. Now it's easy from now on. I just literally just say, okay, apply previous settings. That will apply all of the previous settings, including the crop. So do bear that in mind. You may need to adjust the crop. But other than that, that's it. Everything is now done. The workflow from this point is really quick. So just find one you want to edit. I mean, wow. If this space telescope takes pictures half as good as this, I'll be impressed. Okay, here we go. Previous settings. Boom, look at that. What a difference. And remember that that's not fake, that's actual real. That's kind of really the color that should actually be there. That's my color profile set, my white balance set correctly. Okay, I've given it a little bit of boost with the old dehaze, but other than that, that's pretty good. One last thing I often do with these, and that's just get my radial filter and set my radial filter to underexposed by a stopper and a bit, and just drag out a little bit of a radial filter, just so it gives a little bit of a drop off at the edges, so it feels a little bit more three-dimensional. It's not a necessity, but it just makes everything feel a little bit more 3D. It gives some shading to the object that really wasn't there in the first place. Okay, we'll do one more just to wrap the session up. I see, this is the trouble. You do end up having this massive random assortment of beautiful images. Let's go grab this one. Let's see if it's okay. It is. And we'll go apply the settings from before. Apply previous settings. Boom, there we go. Fine tune my cropping. Something like that. There we go. And of course, there's nothing to say that you can't have them in vertical. If you saw the teaser for this session, this is how they kind of did the vertical shot, which was just to turn it on its side and crop it in. Give it a bit of a diagonal going through, something like that. There we go. That'll do nicely. And that gives a very different feel to the shot. Let's pop it on. It does feel like a little planet, doesn't it? Absolutely beautiful. Okay, that brings us to the top of the hour and the top of our time. Have we got any other questions, Sam?
Don't think
We are good to go.
Thanks for everyone making comments. I'm sorry if you've had problems with the screen. It's a little bit out of our control.
Very much out of our control. Trust me, we tried, but that's yeah.
Did you want to just flash up the offer?
Yes, I will just put that back on. Okay, let me just bear with me 1 second. So if you missed the offer at the beginning, I will just pop it back onto the screen now, and we'll scroll right down to the bottom. There it is. So on your screens will be the offer that runs until the end of the month, so you haven't got long to take it up. The 10% off the Calibrite Color Checker Passport Photo 2 and the Analyzer. If you haven't got a Color Checker Passport 2, it's just one of those things I couldn't live without, really. I use it so much. It really is part of my workflow. And the BenQ monitor, totally take it for granted because it's something you look at and just accept every day. It's not until you get one that's really good that you think, oh no, that is kind of good. So well worth investing in one of those. They last and last and last. Alrighty, there we go. That brings me to the top of the show. Thank you very, very much for joining us. If you've got any questions, then always get in contact with both Calibrite and Color Confidence. They will be happy to talk you through these bits and pieces. And this isn't the last of their webinars. They have a whole series of these coming up with a whole bunch of photographers who are generally better than me. So that's probably a good news and well worth sticking around. So thank you very much for joining me. I've been Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.